Okay, everyone, welcome to week 2 of Art 202. I did go ahead and jump in, take a look. So it looks like most of you got your work submitted for week 1. Remember, everything's due Sunday nights at midnight. I did want to let you know with quizzes, and this came up with a student, and I'm glad that she asked this. You know who you are. Uh, you will be able to view your quizzes on Monday morning. So I have it set up so that once it's past the due date, so the due date is Sunday night at midnight. So after actually Sunday night at 12:01, you would be able to go in and you can view the quiz, you can see what questions you got wrong, etc. But you won't be able to do it until after that. So even if you complete your quiz earlier on in the week, you'll have to wait until Monday morning, and there are some reasons why I've done it that way, but it just works best. So I wanted to let you know about that. Be looking for your grades for your week 1 work over the next couple of days. I should have them done tomorrow, is when I kind of have myself set scheduled to do that. And let's go ahead and jump into week 2. So we're talking about describing the visual world. We got a lot of vocabulary this week, a little bit of a longer lecture. So this week we're really kind of diving in, getting those terms into our toolbox so that we can use them when we start writing a little bit more about art. So in your Looking at Art text, we're reading chapter 3, Style and the Formal Elements of Art. So just one chapter this week. And then you have a lecture titled Describing the Visual World. Your artist of the week is a man named Caravaggio, and you do have the Q&A, so there is one of those 10-point Q&As due this week. Your reflection is a discussion board, and then you have a deconstructions project and a quiz. So we've got a lot going on this week, but again, these first couple weeks are about getting that kind of those words and terms under our belt, getting some of the basic ideas down so that then we can start applying them and writing about them. Okay, so here we go. So you have of course, your read lecture quiz all in one item. So you can download the week 2 lecture slides here. And then the lecture is featured here below. And if this embedded version is not working for you, you can just follow this link. You can click on it, or you can copy and paste it into your web browser, and it should take you right to the lecture. But make sure that you download this lecture slides, because there are some links in the lecture that you'll need to visit and view some clips which are not present in this YouTube version of the lecture. So here's your vocabulary. Again, I know you're kind of freaking out. There's a lot there, but we go over every one of these terms in the lecture, and a lot of them, are things that are kind of, you may know already, line and perspective and shape and complementary colors, all those things. So don't panic. They're pretty easy terms overall. And that way you have this lecture, you can always refer back to it when you're going to be writing about artwork. So again, Artist of the Week is a man named Caravaggio. This is a really cool documentary. There's a series of, a documentary series called The Power of Art, and one of them is on Caravaggio. He really paints with light a lot. The way he worked was really a little bit ahead of his time. He was kind of a dark guy. They kind of overly dramatize him in this documentary, but it's kind of fun and really good. He was an interesting character. He was kind of had a lot of demons that he was wrestling with. And so I think you'll really enjoy this documentary and see how someone who's kind of a tortured soul and who maybe isn't the best guy, really, he was kind of a jerk, can really still create brilliant, beautiful works of art. And he's, God can use anybody, and he certainly used Caravaggio because he has some really poignant, amazing works that have to deal with the Christian narrative. And so I want you to answer these questions after you watch the film. And so number 1, Caravaggio is best known for his use of chiaroscuro, and this is a term that we're going to learn in lecture. So define this term and briefly describe how the artist uses it so successfully. 2, list and describe 3 other elements of design that you notice in Caravaggio's work that he uses to create drama in his artwork. And 3, do you think Caravaggio was a mad genius, or was he simply mad? How does the theme of forgiveness play into his story? So again, these are not essay questions. These are not long responses. I'm looking 2 to 4 sentences for each one of these points. So don't, overthink these. They're 10 points. These are meant to kind of just be quick. So, but, they're meant to get you kind of thinking about these artists. So these terms are going to be really useful. So I would make sure that you watch the lecture first before you watch this film, because you're going to want to list 3 other elements of design that you learned in lecture that you noticed Caravaggio using in his work. Okay, so your reflection this week is a discussion board, and we're looking at Artemisia Gentileschi's Judas Slane Holofernes. And because Caravaggio, who we're going to be watching a documentary about, also painted this painting. And so what I want you to do is, after exploring the work of Caravaggio, this week's Artist of the Week, what similarities can you see here in the work of Artemisia Gentileschi? And this is a woman, a female artist, so that there's something, there. This is 1600, so we're in the 17th century. And so to have, a successful female artist is really quite rare. So I want you to list and describe a minimum of 3 visual elements that you learned in lecture that are present in the painting. And I've included a link here, so if you go ahead and click right on this link, it's going to take you to an article from the Art Institute of Chicago about this work of art. So you might want to, it's just a short one, so you might want to quickly read that to give you a little more of a background. And how does Gentileschi here use visual elements to help tell the story of Judith and Holofernes? And so I want you to comment on at least 2 peers' posts. Do you agree or disagree with their analysis of the artwork? I really want you to start thinking about the fact that, and if you Google Judas Slane Holofernes Caravaggio, you'll see a very different version of this painting. And actually, we talk about this in the lecture as well. And so I want you to consider how a female's portrayal of this story might be a little bit different than a male's portrayal of this story. So some really interesting stuff going on here. Again, make sure that you're commenting on peers' posts. You get credit for that. If you don't do that, you will not get full credit on these discussion boards. Okay, and then you have a little project this week. It's called the Deconstructions Project. So this is done as a PowerPoint presentation, and you're going to select 5 works of art. So there's just going to be 5 slides. And what you're going to do is pick a drawing, a painting, a photograph, a sculpture, and some kind of graphic arts, graffiti, symbol type art. So that can be a meme, it can be, something very contemporary. Be sure to cite each image appropriately. So you're going to have a slide with the image, and then under that there should be a caption with the artist's name, title of the work in italics. Remember, titles are in italics. The date it was created, the medium. So is it oil on canvas? Is it bronze sculpture? What's the medium? And the source, which is the full web address where the image was found. So I should be able to copy and paste that web address into my browser and go directly to the image. So here's some resources that you might find really useful. This is MoMA, the Museum of Modern Art, the Met Museum in New York, the Getty in LA, the Google Cultural Institute, their art project is a great resource, and this is SIVA, Christians in the Visual Arts. So this is a small list, but it's a good list. It's a good place to go because I want you to be using legitimate more academic sources here. So I don't want you just Googling some random, where you can't find any information about the artist, or you may not know if the citation is correct. We know from these sources that you're going to be getting, good information. So what you're going to do is 2 of the images you select should be from either a Christian artist or should contain Christian themes, and that's where this source might really come into play. And you're going to list, just in list format, 7 observations that exemplify various principles and elements of design. So all these terms that we're learning in lecture, this is what you're going to be pulling from. So we're really practicing pointing out and noticing these different elements of design. We're pointing out the tools in the artist's toolbox. So you should cite any vocabulary terms, genres, and art movements it may belong to. So, if you can find these terms, if you notice that the artist is using chiaroscuro, if they're using asymmetrical, if it's asymmetrically balanced, if they it's a really kinetic art, if they're using pointillism, if they're using foreshortening. So that's what I mean by citing any vocabulary terms. Genres, if you do a little bit of research, maybe it's from the abstract expressionist movement, maybe it's Dada, maybe it's something else, maybe it's a Renaissance piece. So you might want to note those things, any art movements, etc., that it might belong to. So specific media, color, harmony, these are the things I want you to be looking for. So what you're going to do is make your identifications concise and in list format, but be sure you consider not just what, but how and why the elements are used. So if, for example, you notice that the artist is using foreshortening, don't just write the word foreshortening, write foreshortening, and then give me just, a quick little description of how the artist is using foreshortening. I'm talking like a sentence, so nothing extremely long, but I just want to see that you understand where that is being used. So if you use, if you say tertiary colors, or if you're using complementary color scheme, then maybe say complementary color scheme and what the colors are. So just, make sure that you're, again, including a little bit of how and why the element is used. So you can attach either a PowerPoint file or you can export your PowerPoint to a PDF file. So it doesn't matter how you submit it. Just know that you got 5 slides, your image, your citation for the image, and 7 observations. Make sure that those observations are clear and concise, that if they need a little bit more explanation, include it. If you're putting primary colors, I know what the primary colors are. So you wouldn't really need to explain the primary colors red, yellow, blue. But if you're, if you just say shape, well, that doesn't really tell me a whole lot. So maybe, just include a sentence how the artist is using shape. So if you have any questions about this assignment, please don't hesitate to ask me. So there's a lot going on this week, but it's a good week. You're gonna, get a lot of information under your belt, and it's gonna make you a little more confident in moving into the rest of the class and what we're gonna be doing. So again, any questions, don't hesitate to ask, and have a great, great week.